This is the Pulsebeat. It's said that every inspiration starts with a spark, and we're here to ignite a fire. Join us as we showcase conversations from esteemed experts in a multitude of specialties. You'll find experts discussing topics that stimulate, inspire, and encourage. From the famous and familiar to the lesser known, the Pulsebeat will be your go-to for stirring up a sense of truth and optimism. A podcast that pulses truth with every interview and story, bringing hope into dark places.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Pulsebeat podcast. Mike Smith here, along with Keith Clearwater, the former PGA Tour winner, Rookie of the Year. And we're joined today by a friend of ours and one heck of an athlete. Matter of fact, a pro NFL quarterback one day, Mr. Robbie Bosco. Robbie, thanks for being with us.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
This guy, Keith, as you know, had an illustrious career growing up in Sacramento, California. Probably all state in 3 sports, I'm guessing. I know he was in basketball and football. I don't know about baseball, but that's just my guess, given what I know about him. But he comes to BYU, he plays football. His junior year, he has to take over for one Steve Young, okay, who we think that senior year broke every record there was in college football. But all Robbie did was lead the Cougars to a 13-0 record, a national title, a Holiday Bowl victory over Michigan, down 17-10 in the fourth quarter, led them to 2 touchdowns to win that game 24-17, a perfect season. He's first team all-conference, he's second team all-American, he's third team in the Heisman voting that year, third in the Heisman voting. I think, Robbie, you probably had like 33 touchdowns and only 10 picks. And if that wasn't enough, that was his junior year. So he comes back the next year, leads the Cougars to 10 more victories, 30 more touchdowns, third again in the Heisman, again All-American, again first team All-Conference. Then he goes on to the NFL, plays a couple years with the Green Bay Packers. Injuries to your shoulder probably depleted a pro career, but then he goes into coaching. He's been the quarterback's coach and offensive coordinator at BYU. And the funny thing is, Keith, he's worn, I want to say, 7 different hats for BYU: girls tennis coach, girls golf coach, assistant soccer coach. He's probably been swimming or diving coach. He's worn all those things. And we're lucky to have you. He and his wife, Karen, have 3 girls: Amber, Carissa, Alexis, and maybe 3 boys: Dallin, Wesley, and Colin. Look at Robbie laughing, because when I rattle off those 6 names, whenever I see him, he's like, that's just ridiculous. Don't do that anymore.
That's because I can't even do that anymore. How do you know how to do it?
Anyway, first question for you, and thank you for being with us. And this is totally open forum. We're thrilled you're here. We don't have a script. Keith and I don't prep for this. We're here representing Cardio Miracle, but we're going to get into sports, life, BYU, your golf game if you want, anything. And my first question is, how hurt were you in 1984? I can't believe that's 40 years ago. In the Holiday Bowl game, you're down 17-10 in the fourth quarter. Reports would say sprained ankle, cracked ribs, and maybe a strained or sprained knee. So give me that assessment, because I think fans would want to know that, and maybe your best memories from that game.
Yeah, so it was interesting. Obviously, this is probably the biggest game in BYU history for anything, because we were ranked number 1, and we felt with a lot of other people and some naysayers that if we win this game, that we're going to be national champs. And it's so different than the way they used to do it, but the way it was the way it was, and so we felt very good. So I remember early in the game, I dropped back and threw a pass to Glenn Kozlowski, completed it on the left side. A guy off the right edge came and hit me down low and rolled up on my ankle and just kept rolling and everything. So my first thought during that time was, just get up. You've been hit before. You felt little things going on. Just get up. So I tried to get up, and I couldn't put any pressure on that leg at all.
Oh.
So I went back down, and just the thoughts going through my head were crazy. Like, no, I cannot miss this game because it's just too big for all of us and for all the fans and the school and things like that.
This is the first quarter?
This was the first quarter. And so they came out, they kind of talked to me a little bit. They did a couple things, but then they said, let's just get him in the locker room. So I went into the locker room, and it's really cool. The old Jack Murphy Stadium, which is probably one of my favorite stadiums to ever play in. There's a long walkway to go up into the locker room. So they brought me in there. They checked out my knee, my ankle, and everything. So I did have a high ankle sprain, which probably caused the most pain. That caused the limping, that caused whatever it may be. And then I had a little ligament damage in my knee. And then I think I did have some cracked ribs, but that was later in the game, I think. It was hard to breathe for sometimes. But then they're like, what should we do? And I said, wait, if I go back out and play, will this do any more damage to me? And obviously it could, right? I mean, look, we've all played sports. We can all get hurt at different times. But they said, no, it's not going to do any more damage. So I just said, tape me up as tight as you can, and then let's go back out there. And they talked about giving me a shot or doing this or that. And I said, no, I wasn't trying to be a tough guy. I just didn't want my mind or anything. I didn't know what was going to happen with my body if I did take a pain thing or something like that. So they just taped me up tight as I could be. I said, okay, let's go. They kept on giving me reports of what was happening on the field, and not a lot was happening. No scoring either side. Our defense was playing great as usual. So as I was walking down the little hallway to get to the stadium, there was my dad in the hallway that he had come from out of the stands, got on the field, and came up there. And that was really awesome for me. My dad was a very private person, and he wasn't really into, I got to be by my son, this and that, all that kind of stuff. So it was really cool for me because he taught me everything. He taught me how to golf. He taught me how to throw a ball. He taught me how to do everything. So my dad was amazing. And so then I went on to the field, and you guys have all been where you've had adrenaline hit you, right? And so as soon as I walked out of the tunnel, I heard this huge roar from the fans because we just had that stadium packed. And so that made me feel like, okay, let's go. So I went over there, started warming up, did some drops, and I'm like, oh man, I can't put any pressure on this ankle. It's just like killing me. So they brought me over, took my shoe off, and taped me even tighter. And then I went over to the coach, hey, I'm ready to go. He goes, no, you're not. I go, yeah, I am. And I just went out on the field, and I brought the other guy out and got in the huddle and then played the rest of the game. So
I was there. What a fun moment. And the crowd went nuts when you came through. It was really a fun moment.
That's cool. Yeah, I loved it. I mean, it was, and we felt they were going to blitz. And the very first time we dropped back when we threw the ball, two things happened. We knew they were going to blitz, and we went into shotgun, and we've never practiced the shotgun. Never practiced it in practice, never did it in warm-ups or anything like that. So it was new to all of us. The snap count was even different because the players weren't used to hearing my voice from, 7 yards back or however deep we went. And the very first play of the game, I'm calling a play. He snaps it, hits me in the stomach. Luckily, it was right there. I was able to grab it, threw the ball. They got to me again. I'm like, okay, this is going to be a long night. And so I got in the huddle. I go, hey, we gotta go. We gotta do better in this. You gotta protect me a little bit more to have some time to throw. And after that, they never really even got close. I mean, the O-line was amazing, and they did a great job with it.
So did you buy each of them a Porsche after that?
I will say that's the
big NIL money, weren't you, back then?
Yeah, I made a ton. I think this is what I did do. Y'all may get a laugh out of this now because now there's so much money floating around. Every Monday morning, like when the game was over, I would go to the store and buy a bunch of candy and put it in a little bag. And I would give all the old linemen a bag of candy in that Monday morning meeting. And then you go to the NFL, it's like, oh yeah, I bought my guys some cars, some watches. Like, all I had then was enough money to buy some candy. So that's all I did for them.
Oh, I love that. Let me point out to our listeners something that's kind of a fun fact. And if I'm ever around Robbie, I always share this. I've shared it with a bunch of the BYU guys when he and I were together. But there are only 2 national championships in the history of BYU sports. 2 national championships. There are only 2 men in the world that have gone through BYU in the entire world who captained their national championship to a win. And one of them we are privileged to have on, and the other is the idiot telling the story. So,
That's
it's
awesome.
kind of a cool thing. Robbie and I have this little fraternity personal thing that there's only 2 men on earth that have been able to captain their team to a national championship at BYU, and he and I both have that. So it's quite a unique distinction for me, and I love it that I get to do it with my good friend Robbie, and we joke about it a lot. Lee's always, Johnson's always so cocky, and and I always have to put that in his face. I said, did you ever happen to be on a team and captain them to a national championship? Well, Robbie did that, and oh yeah, some little dumb golfer did that back in '81.
Yeah, you guys led the way with that first national championship. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was fun. So fun history and just fun memories. We all had our moments, so that was great.
Yeah.
Robbie, what's your favorite professional moment that we don't know about?
Oh man, you know what? It was really, I wouldn't say I really didn't have a lot. When you talked about that injury occurred my senior year. And it was our 4th game. We were playing in Philadelphia against Temple. And our right tackle got beat. I was throwing a comeback to the left side, and he put his helmet right into my shoulder as I was throwing. My arm went ball went flying. That was 3rd down, and we actually got the ball back. And I got to the sidelines. I'm like, I can't feel my arm at all. So I'm figuring I've got at least a few minutes to get it back normal, because they had to do their series of downs or whatever. And we punt the ball, and guess what happens? They return the punt for a touchdown. And I'm like, let's go. We got to get my arm going. So they're shaking it around doing this. Okay, I got to get back in. So I go back in the game. My arm, once again, adrenaline takes over. And if people haven't felt that, it's really strange thinking, oh, he's got to be faking it. Nobody can play with that or this or that or that. But it's amazing what adrenaline can do to your body. So I go back in the game. We end up winning the game. Going through treatment, I was told I have tendonitis. And so I figure, and we had probably 10 games left on the schedule. I'm thinking, I can play with tendonitis. So I got cortisone shots. I got rehab. I could hardly practice. I could hardly warm up during the games. The games came around, and really I played strictly with, adrenaline just pumping through my system. And then we had some huge games my senior year. We had to beat number 3 Air Force at home. We did that. And then I find out I got drafted by the Packers, which hindsight, I was probably pretty lucky to get drafted by them. So they sent me down to Frank Jobe down to LA.
Yeah.
Oh,
to
yeah.
check out my shoulder. And I know Keith would know Frank Jobe for sure. And Mike, I'm sure does too. And he laid me on a table and he brought my arm back and he said, "Does that hurt?" And I go, "Yeah, that hurts a lot." And then he pressed his hand here and he did it. He goes, "How about that?" I go, "No, that feels pretty good." He goes, "Okay, we have to operate tomorrow." So they called the Packers, they operated. So I played 10 games with my shoulder coming out of socket. And I guess naturally it would just kind of slip back in, you know what I mean? And so when you talk about my great NFL, what was the best thing that happened? I would have to say I got my shoulder fixed. Because other than that, I really didn't get a chance to play. My third year, I got into a preseason game. And, you know, in the NFL or in most sports, when it's your time, you've got to shine. And I did not shine in that game, obviously. And then I got released probably a week later or 2 weeks later. And then I got into coaching.
Hey, Robbie, this is a question my wife had, and I really like the question. She said, you can get on Google and you can learn all about Robbie Bosco, his great history, BYU, all the things you've done. What is something that no one would know about with you that means a lot to you? Something that really is that we'd have no clue, from family to church to kids to some unique experience you had that we just never know unless they were watching our wonderful Pulsebeat.
Wow. I could have, there's probably quite a few things. I'm going to start when I was littler. And then I'll get up to kind of where I'm at now, but it's not a ton. It's probably four things maybe. So a couple of things sport-wise that were really big, because I grew up in a sports family. That's all we did. I didn't grow up a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but I did a lot of things. Well, I played a lot of golf on Sunday with my dad and stuff like that. But when I was 12 years old, we were a game away from going back to Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and playing in the World Series. Roseville was a huge sports town, especially baseball. And we had a lot of good players on our team. And we went everywhere. We went down to Los Angeles to play. And if we won that little thing there, we went back to Williamsport. And we actually won a couple of games. Then we lost to Hawaii to make it back there. So that was huge. That was a lot of fun for me.
What position?
I played actually a bunch of positions. I think my favorite one was center field. I wasn't big into taking grounders and getting bad hops in the face and stuff. So I kind of like being on the outfield and going on the big hops and stuff like that.
He can take hits from the blind side from 300-pound Lima, but he can't field a grounder.
That's right. In Little League, though, I did play every position except for one position. Guess what position that was that I did not want to play?
Catcher.
Exactly. There's no way I was going to get behind the plate.
Nope.
And then my other kind of fun thing was I was in punt, pass, and kick.
Oh, wow.
And for my first, you start when you're 8 years old, and I think you finish when you are 12 years old. And my first 3 years, because my birthday was in January, I had to go with the group ahead of me. And it was hard. I couldn't get out of Roseville. I would come in like second place or third place, but I couldn't move on. Then finally they changed the age to where no matter what your birthday was, you could be with your own group. And so I was, the first year I did that, I won in Roseville, went to Yuba City, I won there, went to the Bay Area, I won there. And because winning there, I got to go to a Raiders football game. So I went to the Raiders game and won there. And then I got to go to the Houston Astrodome and watch Houston and Pittsburgh play. And in the hotel, I met Terry Bradshaw. I met Jack Ham. I met all these guys that I, just loved watching. And then we flew on an airplane. I think it was the first airplane flight for sure me and my mom and dad ever took. And the winner there got to go to the Super Bowl and do it at halftime. And I didn't win there, so I was one away from going back there to do it in the Super Bowl. So that was a lot of fun as a little kid to be able to do that. I think being at BYU, but I met my wife Karen, like Mike had mentioned earlier, here at BYU. Got married in the Salt Lake Temple. We have 6 amazing kids. If you need to know their names, you can just text Mike and he'll let you know their names. And we have 14 grandchildren and just loving it. So everything's good with the Bosco home.
That's so cool.
Robbie, you and I have a similar entry into the church, both finding the church in college and going that process. And I always say I found everything at BYU. I found my profession. I found my faith. I found my sweet wife. My whole life was transformed because of BYU. And I think you have that same experience. That's why I always feel a kinship. I see you. We share several fun things in common. And I don't know. It's just a comment, not really a question. But tell me a little bit maybe about that process of getting to BYU and just having that the gospel be a familiar voice to you and something you wanted to make a part of your life.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Keith. We did. I mean, BYU is everything to me. I mean, my career is here at BYU. And my mom was a member of the church growing up, and my dad wasn't. My dad's family migrated over from Italy, and they were all staunch Catholic. And my mom, her maiden name is Woodruff. So I'm like a great-great-grandson of Wilford Woodruff.
Wow.
But growing up, that meant nothing to me. I'm like, oh, wow, okay, whatever, And so they gave us opportunities like, do you want to go to church? And my dad said, oh, do you want to go play golf? I went and played golf.
Sure.
And we probably went to church as a family. We went to the Catholic Mass and sacrament in the LDS church. And we probably only went during Christmas and Easter. So that's all I really knew other than what my mom would teach me. And so as I was being recruited, when I started getting letters, I didn't even know what a scholarship was. And I had no really plans to go play major college football. I was nervous because one of my sisters was dating a player at Sierra College, a junior college right there in Rockland, right by Roseville. And I'd go watch him play when I was little. I'm like, man, I don't even want to play this football. I mean, these guys are huge. And even going back a step, my first time I ever played organized tackle football was a freshman in high school. And I only played because my friends were just bugging me all of junior high. Come play Ron Chapman. Come play Pop Warner. Because I could naturally throw a football. I'm not bragging about it, but I could naturally throw the football harder, further, better than anybody else my age or even a little bit older than me. And so I went out as a freshman. At that time, my brother was the starting quarterback on the varsity, and Roseville High School ran the wishbone. So my brother was a really good wishbone quarterback. And I'm like, oh man, last thing I want to do is be getting hit trying to run the ball. So
there's a common theme. There is a
very common theme here. I am not a tough dude. And so
You should have been a golfer.
I know. I went to about a week and a half of practice, and then I quit. I quit my freshman year at Roseville. And then my friends were like, oh, come on, keep coming out. Oh, no, the coaches are going to be so mad that I quit. My brother's like, look, I will teach you the plays. It's not that hard. You can do it. So about probably a week later, okay, I'll go back out. So I went back out. They accepted me. I'm the starting quarterback still and everything like that. And then it was fun. It wasn't the greatest thing ever. I think if I could do anything, I'm going to go back to both of you right here for a second. I just couldn't be at that level. I loved basketball growing up. And me and my brother had a pull-up bar on our bedroom door. And we thought if we could just hang, arms straight up and just hang there for 20 minutes, we were going to grow, because I wanted to be about 6'7". And I don't know if that could have got me to the NBA, but I wanted to be 6'7". I thought that would help, and it didn't really help. And then there were times when we belonged to Sierra View Country Club right there in Roseville. And there was a time I didn't know how to get a professional golfer. I wanted to be a professional golfer. So I would get buckets, huge buckets of balls and just go hit balls. And then I'm like, man, this is a lot of work. So Keith, that was out. I couldn't do that either. And the only sport that I probably could do was probably, if I had 5 sports I loved playing, football was probably on the bottom of that list to do. But I was just kind of a natural at that sport. And I had, I was 6'3". I was probably 6'3" in high school too.
Wow.
So I had the height and all that. I was always kind of a skinny guy though, stuff like that. And so then it got me to where people would tell me what a scholarship was. I'm like, oh, all right. So I started getting all these letters. I got letters from Oklahoma, and I would watch Oklahoma play football. I'm like, I am not going there. That quarterback is running the ball all the time. I want to go somewhere that's going to throw the ball. So I started getting recruited by BYU. Started getting recruited by all these schools, but I just like, nope. And then I narrowed it down to teams that were throwing the football. So you could take 5 trips at that time, but I'm very much of a homebody. So I'm like, I'm going to take 3. I'll go to BYU. I'll go to Cal Berkeley, because they were throwing the ball in the Pac-10 at the time. And then I'm going to go to San Diego State. San Diego State's head coach the year before was Doug Scoville, and he was the offensive coordinator at BYU. And so I'm like, dude, this guy, he's had Gifford Nielsen, Mark Wilson, Jim McMahon. That's a place that I'm going to think about going to. And so I went on my recruiting visit there, and he took me, put his arm around my shoulder. He goes, Robbie, all those quarterbacks, All-Americans at BYU? That was me. He was a cocky dude. He knew that his system was what got him there. He goes, you're going to be the next one. You come here and you're going to be the next All-American. As an 18-year-old kid, I'm like, man, that sounds great. And so I didn't really even though I wasn't a member, I really didn't like the environment there. They took me to a couple parties and stuff like that. That was no big deal. I went to Cal. We were in the dorms with some guys. I'm like, what is that? Oh, that's just some gunshots out there. I'm like, whoa, I don't want to. That doesn't sound like a place I want to go either. So I really, really wanted to go to BYU. So I was like the all-state guy at Northern Cal. And Mike, I'm sure you remember this. Sean Salisbury was the all-state guy in Southern Cal. And BYU was recruiting both of us. And so I didn't know much about really BYU or what the recruiting process was. But if I'm going to go play college football, I want to go and be a player. I want to play. And so I'm thinking, boy, if Sean Salisbury goes to BYU, he's a member of the church. I'm not. He's going to get the first chance to play. And if he's all state down to Southern Cal, he's probably a pretty good player. I'm not going to get a chance to play. And so I started thinking about that. Well, okay, I'm going to wait to see what he decides to do. It wasn't that I didn't have confidence in myself, but I was just putting 2 and 2 together, and it kept on coming up 4. It just made sense to me. So I thought, you know what? San Diego State would be cool with Scoville, but I'm going to probably go to Cal because it's close to home. My parents can just drive down the road about an hour and a half and come to games, and they're in the Big 10 or Pac-10, so that'll be good. So I waited. I got phone calls all the time from BYU. Nope, I'm going to wait. I don't know what I'm going to do. Tom Ramage was our defensive line coach. He recruited Roseville in that area. He came to school. He came to Roseville on a Monday and kept asking me. I'm like, I don't know. He stayed Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and he just stayed in a hotel the whole week.
Wow.
And then he gets, I think it's getting close to, I think it's signing day. So he's at my school. And in our high school, you have glass windows, and it's not a big indoor building. All the classrooms are kind of separated. So he's pacing back and forth outside my classroom, and I'm in math class. Mr. Professor is I can't think of what his name was. Anyways, but I remember I was in math class. He's pacing back and forth, and all of a sudden, he knocks on the window. I look over, and he's waving me to come over, and everybody's like, yeah, go. What's he doing out there? And so I go out there, and he says, Salisbury committed to USC. And I didn't even hesitate. Okay, I'm coming to BYU.
Wow.
Went in, called my dad. Everybody was super pumped I was going to BYU. And so that's kind of how that went, and that's what got me here. So
the untold stories, like hats off to that line coach who camped out in Sacramento for a week. Otherwise, BYU does not have a national championship in football. Like
that's very kind of you. Thank you.
Inches of sports that no one ever hears about, like how Tim Duncan, after his rookie contract in San Antonio, jumped on a plane, flew to Orlando. He was going to sign with Orlando and play with Grant Hill and Tracy McGrady. And Duncan asked if his wife could come on the plane. And Doc Rivers, who was the coach at the time, said no. And, yes, you can fly out here. But Tim Duncan's question, can she ever fly on the team plane to the games? And Doc's answer was no, that's sacred, territory. It's just the team and our group. And so Tim said, that's not for me. I'm staying in San Antonio. 5 championships later in San Antonio. Wow. One decision. Like if Doc had just said, yeah, sure, she can fly with us. We'll get her here we might think differently of the Orlando Magic, but hats off to that stinking coach who stalked you at Roseville High. And
yeah.
That's so cool.
Robbie, do you ever think about those buddies that just kind of pulled you back to the football field and that little tender mercy in your life that they just somehow got you, okay, I'll do it, and how it changed the entire course of your life? I have friends, I was a non-member, that got me to go to BYU and some things. And I'm just wondering, just think how that little tweak, okay, I'll come out and play, changed the whole course of your life. Do you have warm, tender feelings for these people? And just just the fact that they, kind of just, you didn't even know it, but at the time, but directed you in the right direction to where your life became so rich and full of all the good things you have now in your life.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think it really happens in most of our lives. And I don't think we think much of it at the time. And a lot of people probably don't think much of it now, of how they got where they got to. And so you think about those little things and choices that we make in our lives. I honestly, Cal is totally opposite of BYU in my perspective.
Yeah.
And if I go to Cal, I really don't know. Who knows what my life would be like and where that would have taken me. But it was because when I came to BYU, because I didn't have a lot of LDS friends in high school. So I think the one thing that was super cool about the small group of friends that I had, I probably only had 2 or 3 friends that I really hung out with. They understood that I didn't drink, I didn't smoke marijuana, I didn't take drugs, I didn't go to a lot of parties and things like that. So I was very grateful for that. And when they were around me, they didn't do those things either. And so I really appreciate those kind of friends. And then when I came to BYU, I mean, I'm surrounded by all these guys that are members of the church, and it was super cool. I kind of grew up like that, not on purpose, not because of the faith. That's just because who I was. I didn't do any of those things growing up, and why didn't I do that? I have no idea, but nothing appealed to me in those situations. So, you know what? BYU's been great, and I've been here for a lot of years now.
Hey, Robbie, you got a group of guys there at BYU leading this whole athletic program. They're all Cardio Miracle users, every last one of them. And we're so proud of that. This is obviously sponsored by Cardio Miracle. We know you've tried it on the golf course once, and I'm just curious your take on how you felt that day. I mean, we're all drinking it. We want to make sure you're a full-time user of the product because I think it impacts your life in a good way. But even that one day, tell me if you felt anything, if you felt a little more energy, and if it tasted good. What were your just quick takes? Because I know you're not a full-time user yet, but anyhow, just throwing that out at you.
No, I love that, Keith. Thank you. So my wife Karen is a big proponent of health, and she can read labels. She knows what's good, what's not good. So I've been taking a similar thing before I tried this, and it has helped me tremendously. And then when I brought that back, I took at the golf course. That's when I first took that. I took they had some packets, so I took that packet. So Karen was reading this stuff, and she goes, I think this is better. There's more nutrition. There's better things in here for you than what you are taking. The thing that I took before, I have completely gone off my blood pressure medication.
Yeah.
And I don't take blood pressure medication anymore. And so I owe it to what I was taking and to this to make it. So I actually want to be a full-time user of this and help me to not continue to take the medication that I've been taking for 50 years, almost 50 years. Wow. I had high blood pressure when I was 18 years old, and I've been on blood pressure medication for 43 years.
Oh, wow.
And so I finally went off of it. And so I really believe in this, and I want this to be part of my life now.
You had high blood pressure because college coaches were stalking you in high school and baseball coaches were hitting hard ground balls at you.
I do have a lot of anxiety. I will say that for sure.
I'm just teasing.
What's really true, though, that story is my story. I was 30 points high. I took every nutritional product you could take and worked out and was kind of a statement of fitness and health. and yet my blood pressure was always high. And I got on Cardio Miracle. 6 weeks later, my blood pressure got into normal ranges. So I know how exciting nitric oxide and, putting the products in that allow nitric oxide to produce in your body. And so that's arginine, citrulline, all these beets and everything that's in Cardio Miracle. You're going to find that there's nothing greater. And we can't wait to come back, here, in 6 months to a year and see how you're doing, because it's a real game changer. It's not just another product. So we're glad you're trying it. We're glad you know of its value, and it's exciting that the future is going to get you where nothing goes in your body that's a medication, just pure nutrition. Yeah. So that's all.
Keith, I know of another thing that nobody knows about Robbie. He is my Utah Senior 4-ball partner.
Wow.
Yeah, years running and currently, and every year we qualify, and in the last 2 years we've got knocked out in the semis. Probably by teammates of yours who are also our age or a year or two older, and they kind of joined forces, and they're still amateurs. And we lost one up to Craig Wilson and Ron Davis in one semi. So Craig's probably just ahead of you or just behind you at BYU.
I can't remember when he was, but he's a former BYU golfer.
Yeah.
And my good buddy Ron Davis is an exceptional. He's like ranked. I think he has been ranked 2 or 3 before.
Yeah.
In the senior little thing, but all I know, there's a lot of good golfers. Man, me and you are just 2 little athletes, completely different sports.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're just a couple of football and basketball guys who played all sports. I didn't play golf growing up. Nobody taught me. But Keith, we get out there and we battle with these boys. And I'm telling you, Robbie is 100, this, but he's a gamer.
No.
A, he tries hard. B, he does not quit. C, he cares deeply about his game, about every shot. And we have battled. And I don't know how many teams there are every year, but it's probably 44 teams trying for 8 spots of match play. And the 2 years we've done it, we've gotten into the match play. So you got 2 minutes to ask Keith any golf question about your current state of your game if you want.
I know how good his swing is, and you guys have to win this year. You old farts need to go out and beat these kids. You're just both so good.
They're not kids. We're in the senior division, so they're our age. But
they're former kid,
yes.
college athletes.
Yes, they're former college golfers. That's the advantage they have.
Yeah.
But I'll say this guy handles the pressure better than most.
I'll say this about Keith. I have played golf with Keith a number of times, and I think, especially now, I think he really worries more about my game than his own, which is very nice. He'll take me to the driving range after we play. He'll pull out his TrackMan, and he'll say, these are the numbers we got to get to. And he has me, I can't swing as hard as he wants me to swing because I'm just getting too old now. But that's what I love about Keith. He doesn't care. He wants you just to be good. If you have a passion for golf, Keith is there to help you.
He does.
To make your game better. And he's like, man, after about 5 or 6 holes when we were playing, I remember him telling me one time, I love your game. We just need to tweak this part of it just a little bit, and it's going to be so much better. And I just love that because, look at most of my stuff, I got to go to Bruce Brockbank, Todd Miller. These guys are all great coaches. And I just love that they want to help. Yeah. Mike is the same way. Every time I see Mike, he goes like, hey, you've got to try this. And it's just fun. I just love being on the golf course with good people, good friends. And it's just a battle to try to beat that stinking golf course every time. And so I love the game.
It's so true, Robbie.
Isn't it a privilege to hang with people with passion and that actually care about you? We have a fraternity in our little group of professional athletes that is unmatched, so special. I just consider I pinch myself that I get to hang out with the Robbie Boscos, Mike Smiths, Steve Young, all these great humans and great athletes. And I put great humans first. It's just, the privilege of our lives that we get to go through life with one another. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I love it. And real quick, I just want to say something about Mike. One of the more talented people that I know, not only athletically, but also his mind. The guy can remember things that I have to call him up and say, when is my wife's birthday again? Can you help me out with that? And he just has everything down. But it is a privilege to know both of you guys. Both of you guys are super talented, not only in athletics, but I love how you guys are with family, friends, and just being a part of your life. You guys make other people better. That's all I want to say.
Well, that's very dear and very kind. And this has been super fun. 40 minutes of pure joy for me to jump on a podcast with you, Robbie, and learn about how you almost didn't become BYU's quarterback, how football was 5th on your list of sports growing up, how your first hole-in-one was probably on a Sunday, and you can't tell many people about it today. But
no, it wasn't. I didn't get one until a few years ago, so it was on a different day.
I don't know if this great father of yours is still alive, but I think I would have liked meeting him.
My dad actually passed away about 3 months ago.
Oh.
And so he lived to be 93 years old, and he literally taught me everything. I'm not even just saying that.
Wow.
He taught me how to swing a golf club. He taught me, we would look at the old, Keith, you remember the old Golf Digest, and Jack Nicklaus would have, I think it was in cartoonish form, he would teach you different things. And I just read those all the time to try to learn how to do all this stuff. And then my dad would take me to the course, to the driving range, and we would work on all those things. I love being with my dad in those areas.
Oh,
guess where I'm going tonight? I'm going to go visit my 90-year-old father tonight. He's down in Orem. So you've motivated me to go spend some time with we call him Big D, Dennis Smith.
Oh, I love it.
Good for you. I love it.
All right, guys. Keith, any final thoughts, or we're saying goodbye?
Well, I'm just going to say thank you. Thank you for always. These podcasts are not work. They just lift me. They encourage me. They make me want to be better and more. I hear about your history and life and sweet life and the somewhat inspired or touched pieces that got you to where you are. I just think it's amazing. I just love looking at these lives and seeing how people got to where they are, and how I think 50 years from now, when we're no longer on this earth, we're going to look back and go, oh, look at that touch, and look at that touch, and look at that. And that all directed you to where you have this magnificent family and life and friends, very rich. Thank you for sharing all those things. I just love hearing about it. It lifts me. My life's better today because we got to talk to Robbie Bosco.
Amen.
I love you guys. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it, Robbie. I can't wait to host my next BYU event where you're there, so I can tell everybody your mom's maiden name was Woodruff.
That's cool.
There you go.
Have a great day.
All right,
Robbie. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.